Hello, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good morning to all of participants ICComSET 2020. First of all, I would like to thanks to organizer for accepting our papers. Here, basically, we are from International Relations Department, Binus University. I would like to present on the female president and welfare policy in Singapore. This paper basically was done by our team's international research, Binus University, by me, myself, Lalu Yadi, and then Vena Melisa, Galuh Dian Pramadewi, and Ella Prihatini. This topic basically is being inspired by our research on the gender representation and development in Southeast Asia. But today's presentation, I will limit myself into the role of first female president of Singapore, which is Halimah binti Yaakob, and her welfare policy. And as such, our presentation will be limited into three significant issues. First, a profile of Halimah binti Yaakob. The second is on the welfare policy and how this influenced the government's priorities and programs. As we know that Singapore has been known as the most developed countries in Southeast Asia. Singapore has implemented a parliamentary democratic system where there is a president as a head of state and the prime minister as a head of executive body of government. And in 2017, the world has witnessed a drastic change in Singapore national leadership, especially when the first female president was elected, which is Halimah binti Yaakob. Halimah binti Yaakob was elected as the first female president in 2017. And woman usually has been assumed as a kind-hearted and sensitive person toward the humanities, as many women leaders tend to be characterized as fully aware of clean and responsive government and concerned with the welfare of their citizens. As such, our research tried to analyze Halimah Yaakob's welfare policy since her positions as the president of Singapore. And this is the introductions. I think hopefully you know that Halimah as a Malay woman, and we know that Singapore majority are Chinese. Of course, when it was integrated into Tanah Melayu, the majority are Malay. But because of the separation and Singapore get independent in 1963 as a part of course, separation from Malaysia. And this is the first in the history of Singapore where Halimah binti Yaakob, as a female Malay, was elected as the 8th president. Yeah, and it is the first ever woman president since its independence, and therefore it is a historical phenomenon in Singapore politics for being appointed. And he is also a historical woman, first woman to be a speaker of the Singapore Parliament in 2013, and then in the next 2017, she was a first woman become the 8th president of Singapore. So she is a wonderful woman. But however, here in this paper, I would like to discuss the impact, especially on her welfare policy. As we know that welfare was consists of several elements, but I'll just focus on few things, especially on the elder societies as well as disabled citizens welfare, as well as, of course, about the employments, yeah, and social network and social services. Prior to, if you look at in the parliamentary democracy, where the president is a symbol of ceremonial head of the state, but then after November 1991, where the constitution was amended to make president's office as an elected office with discretionary power, especially relating to two items. First is safeguarding of national reserve, and the second is protection of the integrity of the public services. So therefore, the president has power to veto or to disagree with the government's proposal in the following areas. First, regarding all fiscal matters touching on Singapore Reserve, for example, so the president has veto right. The second, all matters relating to key appointment in the public service and the fifth schedule entities such as Citizen Pension Fund, and then Monetary Authority of Singapore, and then Singapore International Investment long-term, as well as Temasek. So on this need to be, again, appointed by the president. And restraining orders under the Maintenance of Religious Harmony Act. So if there is a dispute between the religious sects or between different religions, for example, so the president has an authority on this issue. And continued detention under International Security Act, for example, and finally, refusal of investigation by Corrupt Practice Investigations Bureau. So these five are under the president's authority, and he has veto right to agree or to disagree. Well, now look at what has been done almost for 3 years that has been passed under the Halimah Yacob's presidential seat office. Yeah? Halimah Yacob changed Singaporean structure economic scheme, and of course, few jobs will be replaced by newer jobs to achieve competition economic situations. And she was attempting to prioritize the marginalized society and to empower disabled students with high technology to train their skills. So basically, part of the welfare was concerned with disabled people, is concerned with marginalized group, so that can have more opportunities to work. Who are they? Of course, the marginalized group is the minority, like Malay society as well, where Malay not becoming minority. Of course, the Indians and the other rest of few groups, including the few and the weaker segment of the society, like the elder persons, the women, and others. And she has been pushing to toughen social safety nets. And she was also boosting the healthcare program, educational need. And finally, of course, during the COVID-19 pandemic, she was helping Singapore get through COVID-19 pandemic. And what is her welfare policy here, if you look at it? She was emphasizing on the secure job. All citizens, regardless with ability or disability, need to have secure job. And then increase the boost, and to boost, for example, social network, as we know that Singapore was very much developed, where everything has been very much under the individual's economic properties. But at the same time, Singapore tried to boost social net, so that at least for those who are not able to get a job, for example, there will be certain programs and help and assistance for them. And also to have a social policy with maintaining the meritocracy as it was practiced before, and to boost healthcare system and facilities to sustain the lives of Singapore whose live and their job have been affected by COVID-19, especially this year, 2020. As we know that all over the world has been affected by COVID-19 pandemic. And finally, if you look at it again in job, our concerns that President has to give each one of Singaporean opportunities, and to build inclusive, caring, and resilient society. What do you mean by this? This concern with welfare policy of the President Halimah binti Yaakob. And as conclusion, I think we have to note here that Halimah binti Yaakob, as the first female president in Singapore, has succeeded in providing workplaces for people with disabilities in all firms. Especially, they also being given certain social network and social care, yeah, especially for the healthcare and facilities for disabled. And her effort in boosting the welfare society has been accommodated in the national employment policy. She has been improving the workers' skill in Singapore to ensure that they can compete with the foreign workers in competitive global economy. And with that, I think I would like to conclude that since the female president took the power, some changes, especially on welfare policy, have been taken seriously. And as such, I can conclude that the female who has more sensitive and responsive, for example, feeling toward the needy society as well as marginalized groups of people, that are proven to be the first priority of the presidential policy in order to include them into the majority of the people to get job, to get the security, as well as to get the social welfare. As such, thank you very much for your attentions, and any questions you can pose it through the Zooms or any other channels. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
11 menit.